Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton of HurricaneTrack.com here. Saturday, September 3rd, 2022. Time for the Hurricane Outlook and discussion. Going to keep this even shorter, hopefully, than yesterday's was. We are busy out in the tropics for sure. Lots of activity to talk about, but nothing that's too bothersome right now unless you're way over in the Western Pacific where James Reynolds is. I'll show you a tweet or two from him in just a little bit. Happy Saturday to you. Happy Labor Day weekend. Let's see what's happening out there. We've got Earl that formed yesterday evening, and it's trying to get its act together here just north and east of the Lesser Antilles. Maybe a few squalls could pass through parts of the Virgin Islands and vicinity, but nothing too serious. And then we have Danielle, weakened from a hurricane down to a tropical storm, could make it back to hurricane intensity again. We shall see. Over in the East Pac, we have Javier, I understand you can say it both ways. Anyway, here it is off the coast of the Baja over cooler water temperatures. I'm going to show you that in just a moment too. And just a little bit of a teaser, we might be talking about Southern California for some tropical activity, believe it or not. It's a very small maybe, but we'll see. And it's coming from this system. I think this is 93E if memory serves. And yeah, we're going to have to watch that in the coming days. All right, so here's what we got. Like I said, it is busy out there. Busy, B-U-S-Y, if I can just slow down and talk properly. It is busy. There's Javier off the coast of the Baja. And then here's our 93E. Here is Earl trying its darndest in the face of pretty hostile conditions overall. And then way up here in the far North Atlantic, just south of 40 degrees north latitude, is Danielle. So a lot of activity. Yes, but nothing impacting land, and that is obviously a really good thing, all right? You know, it's Labor Day weekend, a lot of people down at the beach for one last hurrah, the unofficial end of summer, if you will. We are in meteorological fall, and then you have the astronomical autumn or whatever that comes later in the month. But, you know, a lot of people down at the beach from Texas all the way up to Maine, water temperatures at their peaks right now, and with no tropical activity affecting the coastline anywhere in the last several months. Water temperatures are nice and warm right along the beaches pretty much everywhere, and in many cases they are running warmer than average. And, you know, so this is obviously a very positive thing that we're seeing. Hurricanes can cause a lot of problems. They are certainly fascinating to track. They have that mystery and intrigue associated with them, but when all is said and done, if they can avoid land, I think everybody, especially the really intense ones, we could all agree we can just do without that. But we don't have control over that, despite what you read on the internet. And when they do come, we want to make sure we are prepared. But at least for now, everything is out generally over the open water, including our tropical storm here off the coast of the Baja. That will turn out into the open Pacific and die away over much cooler waters. And then we come over here to Earl. And again, the center of circulation located just north and east of the islands down here. But some of that rain activity, squally weather, maybe a rogue band or two, could dip far enough south if we zoom in here. Again, this is what I really like about this interactive map, is you can interact with it. Remember, it's not just a little swirly like that, and I'll show you on the satellite imagery in just a minute, just to remind you. But yeah, there could be a few squalls that make their way through some of these islands here as this moves on in a rather hostile environment overall. Backing out and then zooming back in again. Here's Danielle still hanging on up in the far North Atlantic, forecast to become a hurricane once again. It's probably upwelling some water underneath itself where it sits there for long enough and it just churns up cooler water from underneath. Once it gets moving again, it gets back over undisturbed water, and there's more latent heat out there waiting for it in the far North Atlantic. Hard to believe we're talking about that, but yeah, it could become a hurricane again and continue to add to the ACE points for the year. I know not many people care about that, but that is a metric of exactly how intense our systems are, how long-lived they are, that kind of thing. The ACE score, it matters to the scientific community. And we'll see. If Earl really gets cranking and we have Danielle that stays on the maps as well, we might catch up to where we are supposed to be with the ACE count. I'll look at that in more detail Monday. I want to get on with this for today, but just something to keep an eye on, all right? All right, speaking of keeping an eye on things, here is Earl. There's the center of circulation. Well, it was there, and then it got covered in deep thunderstorm activity. That is the convection that we talk about. But notice that it's bursting. It almost looks like, mushroom clouds going up, like a nuclear explosion. I hate to use that analogy, but it's that upward motion. Yes, you've got that, but we're not seeing these bands wrap around that center and everything becomes symmetrical. It is still kind of a mess. There's somewhat of a band trying to come up this way, and that's what I mean. Some of these bands could come across the islands, and even a smaller convective burst could bring some squally conditions that could knock your boat over and make you spill your drink down there or your umbrella or whatever. So seriously, this is a bigger storm system than you are, and so you do have to take it with respect, especially if you're down there enjoying some nice time on the boat. You have to be mindful that this is out there. And scooting on up here to the North Atlantic, there's Danielle, trying to get that eye going again, right about in there, I do believe. Some deeper thunderstorms trying to wrap in, and that's what that looks like. By the way, this is not suffering from shear. This is probably dealing, like I said, with some upwelling. That is what you look for. Do these bands wrap around that center like that? And that is not what we're seeing with Earl. But Earl is trying to strengthen some despite the unfavorable overall conditions. So where is everything headed? Well, let's start with, let me go back over and let's start from west to east. This is the GFS from the 12Z run today. Highlight that for you right there. We're going to go out to about the next 5 days or so. And the main area to watch is this. Well, let's use black so it pops better, shall we? We're going to watch that right there, Invest Area 93E. And we're going to put this into motion over the next few days. Watch what happens with it. It starts to get a little bit better organized, kind of hugging the coast there. And you know what? I messed up. I'm way out in time. That's a party foul on Mark. I was looking at it from earlier. That's okay. We'll just go back and do it right this time. So this is valid 12 hours. I was like, that's not right, but that's okay. I'm not perfect. There's Javier, whatever. This would be this evening, by the way. Valid Saturday evening. There's 93E. That did really send me for a loop there. Like, what the heck? I was way out in time there, but that's fine. So here we are. We'll put this into motion. That's what matters, is where we are, not where we were. And it goes on to develop. Looks like a pretty strong hurricane coming out of it, just looking at this particular layer of the atmosphere. And remember, I was telling you that my friend and colleague Brent is down here in Cabo, had a wedding today for one of his family members. In about 90 hours, this will be presumably far to the southwest of that area. So Brent, his family, anybody else that's down there, probably not much concern for Cabo San Lucas, but there could certainly be some big swells coming in, and I fully expect to see some great video from Brent, hint, hint, about that. And then it approaches the Baja, maybe. A lot is going to come down to this. Let me just switch over to the western U.S. shot real quick. Now, this is, again, 850 millibars, the vorticity shot. There it is right there. There's our presumed hurricane. Now, let's just change the perspective on this a little bit. This is very important. We're going to look at the 500 millibar height and the mean sea level pressure out this way. Clearly, you can see this big old bubble of air sitting over the western United States. There's Nevada, Utah, California. You get it? There's the hurricane, would-be hurricane, and it cannot just run into that. Doesn't work that way. The physics on this planet do not allow such things to happen. So let's go back in time a little bit. You see, there's the ridge, and in fact, it strengthens a little bit. There's a little purple, 600 decameters. Good grief, that is a strong high-pressure area, which, by the way, is going to keep it very toasty out here in a lot of areas. That's a whole other story. So the hurricane comes up. The high starts to weaken just a little bit because there is some trough energy trying to sort of knock it down a little bit coming in from the west, and that helps to turn the hurricane more north eventually. See, it comes up, but then there's just still too much ridging, it looks like, out there. That's that red area, and it kind of builds back in just enough that the hurricane or leftovers would get deflected out into the Pacific. Now, this is more than a week out. Just looking at day 5 there, it's lurking off the Baja. And this is really big because if this is weaker overall and this is more to the north and in east, yes, there could be some impacts from flooding rain and that kind of thing for Southern California, Southwest Arizona. And of course, certainly big impacts for the Baja. So we're going to want to watch this very, very closely over the coming days, and we will certainly do so. All right, moving on over to the North Atlantic now, and let's go backwards. That's what I had done before. I was looking at it myself, getting show prep, as they call it, and I forgot to rewind the clock. So here we are. This is where we are currently. There is Earl right there in the vorticity field. There's a pretty healthy Danielle also in that vorticity field. That's old 94L, and that is 93E right there. So let's move all of this forward into time. Watch Danielle up in the North Atlantic scoot around, doing its thing, probably becoming a hurricane again. And Earl really starts to wind up by about day 5, well to the south and east of Bermuda, which is right there. It's not 100% like certain that Bermuda won't be directly impacted, but it's pretty close to that in my opinion. Some variability in the models, even out to 5 days. I think a big key, the faster Earl develops, the more likelihood it follows that trek between this area of high pressure that's sitting out here and what little ridging there is over the western Atlantic, and there's just not much of it. That's been one of the reasons why we're not getting stuff to come all the way across. Howard in Bermuda is very happy about that, I'm sure, as is everybody that lives along the East Coast. That's why, part of the reason, that we're not having any hurricane threats. But both of these out there would certainly, at the same time, bring us closer to where we should be ace-wise. I know I mentioned that earlier, but this is important because this would be a long-lived hurricane, Earl, in the North Atlantic there, just kind of roaming around, just maybe a bother only to shipping interests. So there you go. All right, and then real quick, I forgot this. I should have put it over on the Pacific side when we were talking about that. Water temperatures, just in case you're wondering, south of San Diego and vicinity, too cold unless you're in the Gulf of California. So that's where the track, that big high that's sitting out here, that's going to be very important. How does that set up? How does that ebb and flow, expand and contract, all that kind of stuff? That'll determine the track of this. If it's more up like that, we could really have some impacts here for Arizona, or if that high flexes its muscle more and sends it like glancing off the Baja and then out to sea, much less of an impact. I think that goes without saying. Water temperatures, though, would not support a true tropical system making landfall in San Diego. Not going to happen. I mean, it would have to be really moving fast, and to get that, you'd need a big trough to dig in out here to scoop it up and send it into the southwest, and that is not happening because I showed you why. Big old bubble of air, high pressure sitting over the western U.S. won't allow that to happen. All right, over in the western Pacific, we do have our typhoon Hinam Nor, or however you pronounce it, and it is moving on off to the north here. There is where James Reynolds is over here in Miyako-jima. I think that's how you pronounce it. I think he just refers to it as Miyako. And the core missed him. It kind of went between, from what I understand. Here's a couple of videos from James earlier. This is from his hotel, I presume. He was out and about several hours ago. This is 5 hours, just a different shots, selection of shots from Mr. Reynolds, and he was posting earlier. There was his location. I'll highlight it for you over in Miyako. And then here was that core, the eye. There's the eye wall, and it looks like it just went to his west. But at least he was on the east side of it and could experience what he was looking for out in that area. And for those with interest over there, this does go up into the vicinity east of China and eventually making landfall potentially in South Korea, and then it will work its way, like we've been talking about, into the jet stream on the west side of Japan. And that'll be interesting to see if that shakes things up 6 to 10 days down the road in the northern and western hemisphere. It's all related. The weather is teleconnected, as we say, or we look at teleconnections from what happens in the Pacific and how that can affect Atlantic activity later. But at least for now, busy but not too bothersome, and we can all enjoy a nice Labor Day weekend. All right? All right, that is it from me for now. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Stay safe if you're out there boating and having a good time on the water. Without you, there's no reason for there to be a me. I mean, at least in this world of doing what we do here. I do appreciate your time and attention and want you to stay safe out there. Hurricanes or not, whatever the case may be careful, all right, because I need you back. All right, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to put this online for you. Again, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow morning.